Guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about what is the difference between a certificate of completion of a program in medical coding versus getting a certification like the CCS, CCA, Ccs-P, or CPC. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. Okay, guys. So when you finish a program like at a local college or maybe even online, and sometimes when you complete these medical billing and coding programs, they will say, okay, well, you have completed this program. We're giving you a certificate of completion. Some programs do not give you a certificate of completion. The program that I went to, it's closed. It's no longer there. This was eons ago. But they were very big about you will not get a certificate of completion when you complete this program. And the reason that they do this is because sometimes people will complete a program, and what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to get your certification right afterwards. And sometimes it takes a few months for you to be ready to take your certification. But when you take your certification, that's what employers are looking for: the CCS, the CCA, the CCS-P, or the CPC. And if you don't have those, it makes it harder to get hired because of the simple fact that the difference between getting a certificate of completion and getting a certification, one of those four, right, is that with a certificate of completion, this just says that you have completed a program. This does not measure your competence, whereas these four certifications do. These are nationally recognized certification exams, and they test on certain domains, so they know, the employer will know, this person for sure has a good grasp and understanding of, the field. ICD-10-CM, CPT, HCPCS. If ICD-10-PCS is a part of that exam, ICD-10-PCS, reimbursement, medical law and ethics, HIPAA and privacy, and then of course you have your anatomy and medical terminology questions mixed in there as well. So with that said, the difference between the two is very big when it comes to measuring competence. People can complete a program, but it doesn't mean that they know how to apply that knowledge. And the certifications show that you know that you can demonstrate knowledge on these questions on this exam. So that is why somebody asked me the question of, well, does it matter? Do employers accept a certificate of completion? And while some may, and while some employers may wish that you have completed a formal program, it's not always required. And a lot of them will say, when are you going to get your certification? Because while they're happy that you have gone through a formal program, they are going to want to see that certification, because that is going to let them know that you are invested in the industry, you are invested in your career, because it is an investment. When you take any of these certification exams, you're spending at least $400 to take the exam. So that's a commitment. That is an investment in you and in your future. And whether or not you have to take the test again and again, it really all depends on your study habits. I talk at length and ad nauseum about study tips on my channel because of the simple fact that it is very important to study this. We have to know what doctors know while never having gone to medical school. We often, if you're going through a program and you're going through a decent program, I've always said a decent program is 9 months, 12 months, or 18 months. Some people think that they can race through these programs and, oh, I'm a nurse, or I used to be a x-ray tech and I can do this in less time. Less time does not mean that you are going to grasp any of it. Because I've had many nurses who have come to me and said, Blue, I really thought I could get through this really quickly because I took the NCLEX and I've done this and I've been a nurse, but this is a whole different ball of wax. Yes, it is. Medical billing and coding is completely different from what you have ever experienced if you are coming from the medical field side to begin with. And even if you have no medical background, you can absolutely do this. This is not just for people who have experience. I had zero experience in the medical field when I very first started attending school. So that's something that if you really want to do this, you will be able to do this. But getting a certificate of completion is just one step. And it's really not something that employers are looking for. Because yes, while you can get hired as a medical biller or even a coder without a certification, it doesn't mean that they have to pay you what they would pay as somebody who is certified. Okay, that's number one. Number two, even though you are not certified, you are still bound by our ethical rules for coding and for billing and all of these things. Even if you are not certified, it applies to everybody. If you are in that role, you will be ethical. And ignorance of the coding rules and the guidelines is not an excuse. It's just like ignorance of the law is not an excuse. Ignorance of the coding guidelines is also not an excuse. You have to know that. And as I said, if you get hired without a certification, they don't have to pay you what they would pay a certified medical coder or a certified, somebody who's had experience working in billing. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to get a billing certification. I know they are out there, but when I'm looking at these job listings, oftentimes if I'm looking at a medical biller position, they are not looking for the person to be certified at all. And even if they are, oftentimes they're asking for the CCA, Ccs-P, or CPC. Now, why is that? They are looking for these credentials because this says you have demonstrated the knowledge of coding. You understand the rules of reimbursement. You have all of that knowledge. So that comes in handy. And that is the employer getting the best deal for their money. They want somebody who's educated. They want somebody who's coming in with knowledge. And a lot of times they want them coming in with experience. But even if the person doesn't have experience, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be actively out there applying to these jobs that are asking for experience, because you have new knowledge. You have a fresh perspective about coding because you are learning. It's when people get experience, it could be a good thing. And it can also be a bad thing, because established coders can also, and billers, can also fall into bad habits. And because they fall into bad habits, anything could happen. Okay, so that's why it's always important to stay on top of your game when you are in this field to begin with, and at all. So just make sure that you are thinking about that. Okay, just because they want experience doesn't mean that they're going to get somebody who's experienced. You still apply anyway. Okay, so when you have completed your program, I've talked about how long should you wait to take your exam after you've completed a program. If you've gone through a reasonable length program like 9 months, 12 months, or 18 months, then you can take the exam as quickly as you want to. If you feel like within 2 weeks you are ready to take that test, then by all means you go right ahead. If you do not feel ready because you have raced through and you haven't really applied yourself, you need time to study a little bit more, then you need to start that goal of taking your test within 3 months, because you already have your basics down. If you are studying for at least 3 months after you've completed a program, that's great, because that's going to give you time to get that practice and that speed in for the coding, right? Looking up the codes and making sure that you understand the guidelines and things. I've talked about that before. You got to read the coding guidelines every single week. You're not trying to memorize them, but you are trying to get it more familiar in your mind, okay? Because when you are taking that test, that's going to be when everything's going to show. Your knowledge and your capabilities is going to show when you are taking that test, if you have been studying like you're supposed to. If you're not putting in the time, say for instance, you're putting in 5 hours per week, the result is going to be what you get, and it's not going to be a favorable one, because I tell people all the time it is 20 hours minimum per week. If you are not putting in 20 hours per week, expect yourself to struggle when you are trying to take the certification exam, because again, you need time, and it is a lot. There's a lot of information. It's not just the coding, it's understanding the medical terminology, it's understanding the anatomy, and that's just the coding side of the house. That's not including reimbursement, that's not including HIPAA, that's not including all these other things. So that's the thing, that's why you need those 20 hours per week. So At least that's just my advice anyway. But again, guys, you can have a certificate of completion. If your school does not offer you a certificate, it's okay. You are more it's gonna give you more motivation to hurry up and get your certification, because that's what it did to me. I think it was just a couple of weeks after I finished my program that I went and took my test and I passed. So, and out of all the students that were in my class, I was the only one to pass on the first try, because this is something that you have to really be diligent at. And that's what I was doing the entire way throughout the program, because I was determined to pass this. And when you are determined and you like to read and you like to study, it's a little bit easier, okay? But if you are making excuses and complaining, thinking about the future, thinking about how much are you going to get paid, and oh no, it don't pay enough, and you haven't earned your stripes yet, and you're worried about, oh, well, this person in this Facebook group said that they can't find a job, and I'm just worried about that too. You haven't even taken your test yet, and you're trying to worry about finding a job. That's why I tell y'all to stay out of Facebook medical coding groups, because they are terrible, okay? All they're going to do is just sit here and just complain, and then one person starts complaining and it's a snowball. Everybody thinks it's okay to start complaining. You are wasting energy when you are complaining, okay? I'm just saying. So with that said, you can plan to take your exam once you have completed your program. If you are concerned about the cost of the exam, and maybe you are not in a program that covers the cost of the exam, some programs, the cost of the exam is included in the package, and some of them it's not. If you know that you have an exam coming up and the cost was not covered in your program, you need to make sure that you are putting aside that money that you're going to need to take that certification exam, okay? So just make sure that you're doing that, because you don't want to be saying, well, I can't take the certification because I don't have the money to take the test, when you knew you were going to have to take a test. You know you're going to have to take a test. You know you need to put that money aside, okay? You know you need to start saving that money. And just give up those luxury things that you think that you need, like the Starbucks, Come on, guys. It's real easy to spend $10 at Starbucks, and you do this 10 times. That's 2 weeks for some folks, because they go every day and they spend $10. That's already $100 you have right there. Okay, I'm not saying that you can never go back and have your Starbucks or your Dutch Brothers or wherever you go to, but think about it. Think about all the extra things that you're spending your money on, that you could be saving money towards your certification exam. Okay, so just another thing to think about, because I want to eliminate barriers. I want people to start preparing themselves for the things that they have to do. This field takes a lot of commitment, and your commitment and your level of commitment is going to show to these employers based on what you're showing up with. If you're showing up not certified, but you tell them, I need to get started because that's how I'm going to get certified, some will let you have a year. One lady told me that her employer allowed her to have 2 years to take her certification. Some people said it's 6 months, okay? And then your employment is contingent on you having a certification. And if you don't have the certification, then they can let you go, okay? And you don't want to have that pressure on your mind of like, oh my gosh, if I don't pass this exam, then I'm going to lose my job. Let's take the pressure off, and let's make sure that we are studying appropriately, the 20 hours per week, 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at lunchtime, 30 minutes in the afternoon, and then 1 hour and 1 hour. That's 3.5 hours per day. You do this for 5 days, that's 17.5 hours. And then you have 2.5 hours on a Saturday or Sunday. And that's what you do. And that's how you build that discipline, okay? And it's just for those 3 months. If you're going to study for 3 months, and then you get out there, and then you can get your certification exam, because you've been working, you'll have the money to take the certification exam, whichever one you're taking, and then you can be done with it and pass, and you can be confident, okay? And they can, if they're going to give you a raise after getting the certification, then good for you. If not, well, now you're certified, now you have experience, you can certainly start applying for other jobs if that job is something that you want to move on from. Okay, so that's just another idea out there for you. Okay, but these certifications are very critical to showing your competence. You get any one of these for the CCS, the CCA, the CCS-P, or the CPC. The CCS, CCA, CCS-P are all with the American Health Information Management Association. The CPC is with the American Academy of Professional Coders. You do not have to be certified through both associations. You only need to be certified through one. You only need one certification in your first 2 years. And I say this specifically to my new people. If you are out here trying to rack up a bunch of credentials all willy-nilly because you want to compete with this person or that person, and then you want to be able to make a lot of money because you got a lot of credentials, that's not how this works. There are people who have a whole conga line of credentials after their name who cannot code to save themselves. All they know how to do is take a test. Okay? And employers know this too. And I've had people who complain, well, I have all these credentials and no one wants to hire me because you don't have any experience to back up those credentials. So again, this is why I say the first 2 years, all you need, for my new people, all you need is one. All you need is one. Employers will hire you with one. There is no job listing out there that I have seen that said candidate must have multiple credentials to get this job. And if for some reason there is, it is somebody that clearly does not understand what we do, what certified coders know with just one certification. I'm just saying. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Yes, this is a short video, but it is right to the point. I mean, you know, certificate of completion just says that you have completed a program. And a certification says that you have displayed applied competence for the coding subjects, for the domains of those exams, okay? All you need is one certification. Make it easy for yourself, okay? No one is paying for you to maintain all those credentials. If you do happen to find an employer that is willing to pay for additional credentials, then absolutely get that. Take advantage of that. But if you are having to come out of pocket, absolutely not. You need to wait until you have experience in the field. Then you can decide if getting additional credentials is something that you want to do. I had one credential. I had the CCA for 13 years. And I would gladly have the CCA to this day, but HEMA would not let me. As soon as I got the CCS-P, my CCA was superseded, and I could only carry the CCS-P. So, and that's fine, guys, but I did a lot and built my knowledge very strongly in those 13 years. And there was nothing that anybody could ever tell me about the CCA. The CCA is a excellent credential, okay? It is excellent, and the people who have it have had to have gone through the most domains because it has the most unique domains of all the medical coding certifications. A certification that is broken down by chapter, that's something that is different. Just because there's a bunch of different chapters that are listed, that is just a breakdown of the same book, okay? The same thing. It is not domain specific. So if you look at all of the credentials and all of the domains, the topics that are covered on that exam, you will see that the CCA covers the most because those people are competent at everything. I'm just saying. So with that said, I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.